So I'm Tim Motzer, musician, guitar player primarily. I have a record label out of Philadelphia called 1K Recordings, which is primarily a vehicle for my own work and collaborations that I'm doing with different people. Also tour with an artist named Ursula Rucker, who is a poet who worked with the Roots early on in her career, and since then she got record deals in Germany, and we've been touring for like the last decade, and primarily Europe, Portugal, places like this, and not as much in the States. So if you have any particular questions about touring in Europe or whatever, please ask, and that's pretty much it.
So my name is Alexandra Casazza, and I have a music booking agency called Trouble Worldwide. The agency is based in San Francisco, and I work with a lot of world music artists, some international artists that bring to North America, and some of the national artists that bring to Europe. So I work both ways. So if you have any questions too about touring, and I made a couple notes of websites that you guys can research some festivals and everything, some resources.
My name is Matthew Covey. I'm based in New York. I run a nonprofit called Tamizdat that handles immigration for musicians coming into the U.S. We also do a fair amount. Over time, we've done a lot of work with booking tours in the U.S. and booking tours in Europe. Prior to that, I managed some bands. I was a booking agent based in Amsterdam for a while for an agency there. And before that, I was a musician. I guess I'm still a musician.
You're still
an inactive musician. Is that okay?
That's all right.
Can be inactive.
Yeah.
I'm in remission.
Yeah, sure.
Fair enough. So the first question was that we were going to ask the two of you.
The three of you.
Three of you.
I'm here too.
The studio audience. That's right. Studio audience was what your interests are, and I think given the number of people here, we can really sort of focus on what it is that you make a very impressive presentation.
You're very well.
But you're both
Okay.
musicians.
Personal consultation.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
personal consultation.
Right on, I want to be on video.
So I guess that there's no reason to go into any sort of spiel about stuff that's not applicable to what you guys are interested in. Are you focused on touring primarily in the States, or are you thinking about what could be? Are you thinking about touring abroad, or what's kind of? Is it touring issues that you're primarily interested in? Presumably, that's what it is.
Why I'm here.
Yes. I have toured outside of the United States. I've toured somewhat in the United States. My biggest issue is getting the funding and how you go about doing that. Contacting presenters. If right now I just fired my booking agent, or I let him go. That should be nice. In case he watches this. And so I'm planning on being the one who's going to be contacting presenters, or whoever, if I find someone else to do that. But it's the times that I've gone on tour, except for when I've gone outside of this country, I've funded it myself. And the anchor gigs aren't enough to really pay for this, the daily stipends for my musicians and their per diems and equipment and everything that goes along with the tour. So this is my quandary, because I'm in a place in my career right now where I've played pretty much all of the main venues in this area and garnered enough critical acclaim, if you will, to be, where the music needs to be presented outside of this area. And so now that's my challenge. So that's fine.
But you said when you toured in Europe before, is that?
I haven't been to Europe yet.
Okay, so where have you been outside of the U.S.?
Brazil and Mexico.
From Brazil.
Are you from Brazil?
I'm from Brazil.
Okay. Yeah, we were in Porto Alegre and Rio Grande do Sul and São Paulo.
And you found when you were down there that paid for itself in ways that you couldn't do in the States?
The deal with the presenter there was that we paid, or I paid, for me and my musical director to fly down, and then everything else was paid for once we got in country. So, and we were paid well, and we were treated very well. So that was probably one of the better situations.
Yeah.
I'd like more of that.
And your situation? Are you playing out?
No, my project is new.
Okay.
You know, it's the first kind of non-rock band thing. I've gotten a couple. I got one invite to do something in Europe, which I didn't take because I couldn't afford to go over there right now. But I'm planning to go over there, and I just hear all these things from friends of mine. I have a friend who is actually making a living just touring France every 6 months, which I thought was kind of amazing. And he's a very popular, like, French pop band.
Okay.
You know, my roommate, who is like a music industry person from way back, is giving me all this wordage about how, you know, I would be great in Eastern Europe, and so, you know, I'm exploring the idea of actually, like, doing a tour and maybe actually making some money.
Right.
In Europe or possibly other markets. You know, trying to explore that for what would be the first time for me.
Sure.
You know, so I just came because I want to hear about.
How do you even get started with something like that?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here to kind of garner as much information as I can about touring outside of the U.S.
Is that your question? Where would you start?
I don't know where to start.
Okay.
I mean,
I know I have some contacts.
I mean,
so.
it definitely comes down to, you know, knowing some people over there. In some cases, it may even be just get yourself over there and
Right.
network while you're there
Right.
and make those connections.
Right. Well, I'm pretty good at, you know, making connections.
Yeah.
But I would say the things, more specifically, I'm also interested in things like, I was talking to another friend about playing in France, and he was giving me, he was in a band that was actually really popular, but they had a hard time playing in France because France has certain rules about people from outside France playing there. It was not economically feasible to play in France because of how they tax you and things like that. So I'm wondering about resources to find out for that kind of stuff about.
Like, how do you, resources for figuring out how the tax systems work in any given country? Or?
Yeah, you know, and how to, or how I would never known that if my friend had just told me,
Right.
you know, so, and I know there are like issues with Canada too,
Mhm.
as far as like goes. He was
Yeah.
trying to give me all this like, info about like how to specially mail your merch and like set up your show as like a fundraiser so that you can kind of get past this stupid Canada rule or whatever, you know, so it's like those kind of things I'm really.
Yeah, there's a
curious
sort of
about.
infinite amount of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And every
right.
country is different.
Yeah.
In terms of getting the official information, oddly enough, probably the best source of information, like how do you deal with taxes, with French taxes, oddly enough, called consulate. And the French consulate, you know, in San Francisco would probably be able to tell you, or
Right.
focus you to an email or to a website.
Mhm.
But that's going to be official information, which may or may not bear any resemblance to what the reality is.
Oh.
So, I mean, that's something that I deal with an awful lot with artists coming into the U.S. Because there's incredibly strict rules about foreign artists coming here in regards to taxes. But it's not really that big a deal because nobody really ever follows them. At a certain level, if you're playing 1,000-person venues, 2,000-person venues, yeah, you're going to start running into withholding. But if you're playing for cash in a bar
Mhm.
or a club, you know, if you actually try and follow the directions, follow the real rules from the IRS website, you're going to be lost. Because it's not going to bear any resemblance to what you're going to experience at payout at the end of the night. You know? And I think that's a situation a lot in Europe. We were talking about this before, that in France and Italy, there is a withholding that certainly for larger venues, they're going to withhold money from what they paid. So a certain amount of your guarantee is going to be withheld.
Right.
You can get that back, but it's kind of a torturous process. A lot of times what happens when booking shows in Europe, especially if you're working through an agent, but even if you're working directly with a promoter, actually this could work anywhere, it should work in the States, is the thing to do is say, look, you know what, I need $2,000 for this show, and I need to walk away with $2,000 for this show. So whatever is going to get taken out, whatever you're going to take out, fine, you calculate that, Mr. Promoter, or you calculate that, Ms. Booking Agent, and just make sure that I'm walking away with that. And that's sort of, I think, a lot of the artists I've worked with,
Yeah.
to sort of avoid the topic. Like, you know what, I don't want to deal with that. I'm dealing with, you know, 15 different countries, there's no way I can get my head around it. So you kind of, I think it's okay to kind of dump that on the person who's paying you. Because at the end of the day, it's their responsibility to do the withholding legally.
Mhm.
It's not really your responsibility. So if they don't, you do owe the taxes, but they should have done it, yeah. I think, how about Canada? What's the taxes?
Canada is 15%.
Okay.
But you can apply for tax waiver before, like from 6 to 4 weeks before, you can apply for tax waiver. And most of the time, you get the waiver. It's very rarely that they say no. Very, very rarely. If you Google tax waiver Canada, it probably is going to come a couple websites, but one of the websites that you can find the forms is www.carc.gc.ca. Anyway.
What was that again? What was that? Here's that number once again.
You can Google tax waiver Canada. I'm probably
Gotcha.
gonna get some of the
It'd be
forms.
easier to figure out what Ellie just said, right? Awesome.
But isn't it not only the taxes, but the getting permission to perform in Canada, I hear is very difficult.
In Canada, if you playing in festivals, you don't need to have a work permit. You just
You
get
need
a,
You
you need to get an invitation letter from the festival, and that will be okay with your passport when you go through the border. But once you start playing in bars or clubs, then it gets complicated. Then you need to apply for working visa.
I think the funny thing about handling the bureaucratic issues is it's antithetical to how you need to do everything else in terms of getting ready to go abroad. And that's the sense, like, when people come to me or to any of us probably say, like, how do you figure out where to go? Where do I book my tour? My answer is always like, what band is like you that's already touring in Europe? You go on their website, you figure out what the routings are, and you work backwards from there. You reverse engineer. In your case, obviously, like Pharaoh's Daughter is out there. They're playing Europe all. Do you know them at all?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
They've been playing in Europe for years. They're playing smaller venues, but they're playing good festivals. And you know, if I was in your situation using the band that you're doing it, go on, figure out where they're playing, and then figure out and see reverse engineer. When you're dealing with bureaucracy, it's totally the opposite. Because if you go and ask musicians how you deal with the visas, if you ask musicians how to deal with the taxes, you're screwed. Because the information you're going to get is going to be so wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, at best, it's going to be, I don't know. More likely than not, like, I have so...
It's like getting directions.
Oh my God. Oh, no. So a lot of, again, working with musicians coming to the U.S., a lot of my life is spent unraveling the crazy shit people come to me with saying, well, you know, I've already taken care of this part of it, and, you know, my friend in this other band told me this is what I need to do. It's like, oh, God. First of all, get out of the U.S. as quickly as possible right now, because if you're caught, you're going to jail. Then, once you're out of the U.S., and we're going to talk about how to solve this, you know, but it's a very different kind of information, and I think it's, with all of this stuff, it's really important to actually get, whether it's taxes, or whether it's immigration, or whether it's, at a certain point down the line, rights issues, royalties, all that stuff. It's really important to get actual information from whatever source is actually publishing the information. And there's other sources, like, you know, for the U.S., again, I'm thinking in terms of the U.S., which is useless for the two of you. But, you know, there are websites out there that are really, that actually have authoritative information. The U.S. APAP has the arts.
Arts from abroad.
But, yeah, but what's the APAP stand for?
Association of Performing Arts
Presenters. Yes, thank you. Okay. They have a website called artistsfromabroad.org.
That's the best.
Which is amazing. It's got like half of it deals with immigration, half of it deals with taxes. It's authoritative. It's completely right. They update
Those are
it.
for artists coming from outside.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and there are, like this website you're talking about deals with Canada, and I don't know if there's, so you need to find the actual information, I think.
But yeah, I think you always can rely on the presenters as well. If you
Yeah.
are dealing with a promoter in Europe, you know, you always should ask him, hey, so how you deal with the taxes with the artist that comes to play in your venue? And most likely he's going to have some information to give it to you, or some way for you to deal with that. You know?
Unless you're doing like a club or bar tour, and they may not know that.
Yeah, that would be, that's
So
true.
house
They,
shows.
yeah.
Yeah.
House shows.
House shows. I mean, that's going to be my thing. Like
Yeah.
for my first
But that's
foray onto, you know,
That'll
international.
all be
thing.
cash anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, under the table.
Clubs.
Then clubs
Clubs,
under the
cash.
table,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I think the problem is gonna be to go into the country with equipment, I think.
That's, yeah.
Right.
Right, what do you think? That's a little
That was
problem,
my
right?
other.
Are you gonna be touring with gear or with?
Yeah, I have, I mean, I tour with like the minimal, like just, or I mean, I work with like the minimal kind of setup, but I was trying to figure out like, how am I gonna get this on a plane?
Yeah.
How am I gonna get this over there? Like, what is
Yeah.
this? You know?
It's
just
a
like-
big worry, actually,
Yeah.
you know, and the thing is like, once you're flying over to Europe,
Uh-huh.
it's not as big of a worry, because,
Uh-huh.
you know, you can take a certain amount of weight. But
Uh-huh.
once you get into Europe and you're flying from city to city or country to country, then they really kill you with the weight.
Mhm.
So you could have like overage charges, you know, we experienced stuff anywhere between like 40, 60 euros to 800 euros of charges just for one flight that we were overweight. And it's like, you can figure out a way of being as compact as possible and making sure your promoter has backline for you. So you don't have to take anything, except maybe your instrument, you know. If you can do that, or a small pedal board, or whatever it is you might need, have them backline the whole thing. And you just have to show up with your instrument. That would be the best way if you can.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't always work that way.
It's a lot more.
Right, I think in some cases I can't, you know, but, so I'm wondering.
So keep it small, and, you know, get good flight cases, so you have some sense of, this isn't gonna be destroyed when it gets there.
Right.
And I have pretty good faith with the airlines in Europe and in other places, more so than the States.
Uh-huh.
You know, they're more, I've taken so many risks with guitars, in you know, soft bags. I said, you can't bring it on. And
Right.
you have to fight all the time with different
Do
scenarios.
they let you bring your guitars on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there were times when maybe something just happened and you can't bring anything large on.
Uh-huh.
You know, so there's always a wrinkle, and every single day you have to figure out a way of getting your guitar on or whatever.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's fun, but I mean, if you can keep it small, that's the best way to go, you know, and have great cases. If you have
Can
to
you put
check.
everything in like a trunk? You know, I mean, I'm literally wondering about like the size of the stuff you can like take with you on a plane. Like,
Well, every airline's different, and they all post what you can do.
Okay.
So, but the danger of you're traveling in Europe is you fly over on Delta and you get over there, and then you've got 9 different flights within Europe.
Yeah.
They're all different airlines.
Oh, it gets
Yeah.
really,
That's a nightmare.
yeah.
To figure out what else. Guys, somebody else in the room.
Oh, hello, hi.
We're kind of small scale here. So everybody else had to divulge what they're doing. Are you artist?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm part of a 8-piece ensemble.
Okay. Based here?
Some of them are here, and they're around different workshops.
Okay.
So we're kind of breaking it up to take
Okay.
different notes.
What kind of music? I know it's terrible.
We describe ourselves as Baroque indie pop. So
Oh.
basically
Wow.
fronted by 3 female vocalists. I'm one of the vocalists.
Okay.
We have drum, guitar, violin, cello, harp, and guitar.
Nice.
I say piano. I mean, so there's 7 of us in the band. There's
Okay.
technically 8, but right now we have a sub-cellist
Okay.
with us. But we're
A
generally
sub-cellist?
8-piece. Somebody who subs.
Oh, so I was thinking,
Yeah.
I've never seen a sub-cello. I would think that'd be amazing.
Normally 8 people, yeah.
Okay, cool. And are you playing mostly around the area? Or?
Yeah, we've played mostly around the area. We've done a couple of like festivals.
Okay.
We did Musicfest in Toronto last
Okay.
year.
Nice.
And we just did South by Southwest. And so we're just doing the festival stuff. We haven't really done like a full tour yet, but ideally one day we want to do that.
And what's the name of the band?
Blue Rabbit.
Blue Rabbit.
How was South by Southwest for you, your experience there?
It was our first time and it was a little crazy. There's a lot going on.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, so people definitely have like ADD, but I think we had a pretty good response. I mean, the place got pretty packed and we had a good crowd.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you been? Either of you been down there yet?
Not yet.
Yeah.
I was
I don't
close to
get
getting in,
it.
but I didn't.
I don't get why. I don't get the why of South by Southwest at all. But
Okay.
it seems like a lot of, that's so much stuff going on. Like, I can't get my head around it.
Yeah, it was hard to kind of.
How many
shows? Yeah.
How many shows did you do at South by Southwest?
We did one.
And where was the venue?
It was actually a small little bar called, I think, the chugging monkey.
I was there one night. Wait, what did we see there? That's where Delhi to Dublin was playing.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes, indeed, we were there.
So you have a specific, sorry, do you have any
No, go.
specific questions for us?
I'd like to listen a little more. And then
Okay,
maybe
that's
I-
fine.
yeah, I
Do
can
you want to be put on the
slide.
spot?
Well, I mean, maybe one question, which I don't know if people have asked, is like, we're not signed. So ideally, we do eventually want to tour, hopefully
In Europe?
internationally. Like, can you kind of offer any kind of suggestions on how to raise funds or, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
to do that?
we had an answer to that.
Yeah.
Waiting.
Yeah.
It's hard to raise funds. You always can apply for grants.
It depends on where, I mean, if you're talking about in the US, and I don't know if there's an answer to the question in the US. In Europe, there's an answer to that question, because there are, you can theoretically, or I think in a lot of places well, outside the US, you can get an anchor gig, got this festival in Finland, and they're paying,
Right.
$5,000 for a new band, or $10,000 for a band that's established, and flights. Boom, you're in Europe, great, okay, so now you can just spend all that money you made on the ensuing, 3 weeks of touring. In the States,
Unfortunately, the States, there's a very tough market. Most of the bands, until you get to the middle level to upper level, it's very rarely that you break even. Unfortunately, that's the reality. So, if you get 2 or 3 big festivals that's going to pay a good fee, they might be able to,
or university.
or university or college or performing arts centers that's going to, pay a flat guarantee that's going to be, big enough to pay for the flights and, car rental and per diems and, the musicians' fees and everything. Some places, I don't know the names, but some websites for the APAP, you can find artist support, touring support that you can apply for it. But I think you need to have a non-profit organization to be a fiscal
Sponsor.
Right.
fiscal sponsor in order to do that. I'm not sure about this information, but apap.org, I believe, is the website.
Okay.
You can do a little research there.
There's also a lot of things that people do with, even on fairly small levels, with corporate sponsorship. I don't know if people really want to do that or not, but that does happen, There's a great thing going on in Europe. That probably doesn't still happen, but there was a time when Volkswagen had a huge sponsorship. What do you mean? This?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I give the right website.
Volkswagen had this huge sponsorship program where they would supply bands. And you could just apply to Volkswagen and say, I'm taking my band on tour. And it was pretty easy to get, apparently. And it's like they had this whole fleet of big Volkswagen bands. And they said, Volkswagen tour project or something like that on the side of it. But yeah, the great, go for it. You can swallow your pride and drive a big Volkswagen.
Sign on your van.
Exactly.
That there's $1,000 of equipment inside.
Yeah, well, there's that too. Yeah. I'm gonna pull up. I think the thing is, the answer, at least from Daniel, I'm sure I don't know if you have anything more to add to this, but I know that, when I was playing the band, it was just simply an issue of slowly increasing the circumference. Based in New York, got to the point where you could break even on a show in New York, because it's just a subway ride. Not hard to break even, then you add in, Providence, and you add in Baltimore, and then you get to the point where that can, you're gonna make money in Baltimore, so then I can push on to DC, you can push on to Chapel Hill, and just sort of slowly increase the radius. So that if you go out for a weekend, if you go out for a week, at a certain point, the losses on the ends of the outer rings is made up for by, the actual money that you're gonna be making on this ring. That's a really slow process. It's probably faster now with all the social networking stuff, so you can actually get people to find out about your shows in ways that you couldn't 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Is that something you guys are doing? Like this, is the technology stuff driving your touring at all?
I think it all helps, yeah. I mean, we're definitely using websites and Twitter and things like that to let people know that we're coming to shows. So I think it always helps. I'm always like blown away. Like if we did a show one time in Paris or something, and I heard somebody call my name out, and I looked around and I was going in, but I didn't know that person. It is you! And they'd seen me on MySpace or something, and they wanted to know if they could get a free pass to get in to take photos. But I mean, people definitely check this stuff out. So I mean, you should do that stuff and use it. It's good.
The other thing I think in terms of like how do you get those anchors, I think the logic to something like South by or CMJ has a lot to do with just having done it. Whether you learn anything or not, or whether anybody sees your show, it goes in your resume, you know, and if you're one of the 2,000 bands that got accepted this year to South by, it means something for the next festival that actually might pay something. Might not mean a lot, but it's something. Like it delineates you as in the game to a certain extent, as opposed to guy in the bedroom with a computer. Not that there's anything wrong with a guy in the bedroom with a computer. But it's hard. Like I have a really good friend who, you know, he was on a major label 10 years ago. Great, I mean, not really my kind of stuff, but very like good pop singer-songwriter guy. He was on Universal, fell apart, he had a kid, he dropped out of the music industry for like 8 years. Then just self-released his first EP for 8 years, I think it is. And you know, he applied to South by, and he didn't get in. And I was like, wow, this guy was on a major label, why would that happen? But I mean, I was talking to the folks at South by, and I'm like, well, he hasn't played anywhere. Like he's not doing it. Like as far as we can tell, he's just been in his room for 8 years, not really done anything, and now he's made some more songs. He's made 6 new songs in the last 8 years, and that's like, doesn't really show them that he's in the game and that he's really going to be pushing it, because they have an investment. Any of these festivals have an investment in the artists they're bringing in, because they make their renown on people who play there and then get big, and they can say, oh, but, you know, they exploded out of South by 2 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever it may be. And if they look at your application and it doesn't really look like there's any chance that's going to happen, because it doesn't really seem like you leave your bedroom except to go to South by, it's probably not going to work. Whereas if they do, it says something to everybody else in the industry that, like, okay, South by thinks you're doing something, so you might not be, but at least there's somebody out there who's supporting it. And I think the same could be said for, you know, radio stations. If there's a radio station who's playing, if you get a review in any number of blogs or zines or paper magazines. Are there any paper magazines anymore?
Paper magazine. Doesn't matter.
So let me give you 2 websites that they have information about touring support. One is from the California Presenters. So it's calpresenters.org. And then, calpresenters.org, and then artspresenters.org. There's 2 websites that you should look. There's a lot of resources there.
And what is California Presenters?
It's the California Presenters Association. So all the presenters from California, they get together, they have once a year a conference, so you can see all their contacts there, and they do artist touring support. So you apply for that, and then, you know,
Sorry, what do you mean by presenters? Like people who
buyers, the people who buy your show.
Like each venue, you know, whether it's a performance
Talent
center.
buyer.
Yeah.
Talent buyer.
Are these things different than APAP?
The APAP is the long one. It's the artspresenters.org.
Artspresenters.org. Yeah, okay.
That is the
Gotcha.
APAP, that's the APAP
Gotcha.
website.
Gotcha.
So is it CalPAP?
No, it's calpresenters.org.
Should we just start The original question was how do you fund this stuff, and we didn't give you an answer. But we've futzed around.
How do you get
Actually,
your
I
website?
mean, I've applied for touring grants before.
You did?
I've applied for lots of grants. I have a whole wall filled with all the rejection now.
How many grants have you applied for, do you think?
With this particular project, probably I'd say 20 to 30.
Really?
I might be exaggerating.
Do you write them yourself, or do you have a grant writer?
Francis Wong, that was in there.
Oh, okay.
Is got me off the ground. So we have enough
Great.
verbiage at this point where I can pretty much write them on. But he's my fiscal supporter. Whatever they call that. Sponsor. Thank you. but I received an East Bay Community Foundation grant, and I've gotten 2 Zellerbach grants. But I've applied for more, and, the touring stuff is definitely the big one. And, it's hard to find grants that will support touring artists. They would rather commission for new works.
New works, right.
Yeah, so, which we have, and can always do that, but, I'm in a place where I just want to go out to work.
Yeah.
I think the other thing about, this isn't talking about grants, it's talking about how to come up with anchors. I think that there's so much of it, we were talking about this before, so much has to do with research, because there's just so much stuff out there, there's so many events that are a lot of them are so fine-tuned, that, I was managing the Klezmatics for a long time, and so when you said, the Sephardic music, I immediately am thinking about all, because they're pretty well known, the number of crazy little projects that they got sucked into from anywhere in the world, just because we need a klezmer band that's famous. Oh, well, there's the one we want, right? But it's you discover, that Linz, Austria has their Jewish music festival in July, and they've got tons of money, state money, to bring in bands, but who would know, right? Unless you just do a ton of research,
So there's no one
No,
specific
there
list.
isn't.
You just have to keep.
Right, or there's the, if you're thinking about, what you're talking about, electronic driven operatic
The
stuff.
thing I got invited to
Yeah,
was
was?
Death Rock Festival in Lithuania. I told the person
How did they find you?
What was the,
I just know this guy, and I'm gonna go to and I told the guy I'm not. There's
Yeah,
nothing
that's-
really.
Yeah.
There's nothing really death rock about me. He's like, girl, just wear my eyeliner. Like I'm not that goth,
What was it, who put this festival on?
It's some chick. It's actually not her invited me. It was one of her funder people.
Okay.
The dude. So
That's
it's
fantastic.
yeah. So but
But
yeah, that was pretty random.
Right, that's totally random, but that's
Random,
cool.
yeah.
How'd they find you?
I'm a friend.
Oh, okay.
He lives in Santa Fe. We were fine.
But, at some point, your music's out there enough on the web that somebody's just gonna stumble across it.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, this is so cool, I was working with this British band, Maps, who are now on Mute, I think, but they weren't doing anything to promote their careers, they were sort of just chucking the stuff up on, MySpace. But, just, it's one of those things where just one thing leads to another, and they, I saw them, they were doing a pretty good US tour, not because they had done anything themselves except put it there, which is not good advice. But then there was a couple of fanzine people in the States who really, really got into them, and I think the whole thing is getting the network out and getting the amount of information. But for example, there's the Unsound Festival in Krakow is they do an enormous amount of interesting electronic stuff, arts and electronics. I think from the bare description of what you're talking about, you do totally it's a very Unsound kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever think that there's going to be a festival like that in Krakow? I don't know, but if they've
I want to know about it. Yeah.
if they've got money and they can get you that far, then you can always hitchhike your way back across Europe.
Yeah. Electronic festivals.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a lot.
There's a lot. I mean, do you read The Wire magazine, for instance?
Yeah.
I go read it at Thomas.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always they have a tremendous resource on their website, actually, for festivals. You just go online.
Right,
There's a
yeah.
Huge amount of
That's
experimental.
technological, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Right.
sometimes magazines have all kinds of resources like that, and every one of them is really great.
What was the
Yeah, I have a website for venues. Do you guys use Polestar at all here? Polestar?
Polestar?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, to find venues here in the United States.
That's not very good for Europe, so.
No, this is for United States, but I
Okay.
think nobody knew. For Europe, it's a good website, but I think you need to pay to get a membership in order to access the contacts. But it's a VIP booking.com. So that's a good resource for And another way too, that's what Matthew was saying, to find a band that you really like and you see where they routing, where they playing, and just there's a lot of research.
Yeah.
And if you can get to the point where you're actually knowing the band here in the States, like if it's an American band, you get to the point where you meet them when they're playing guitar, hang out with them, and then, so when you're contacting this little club, Raymond, you can say, oh, I was talking with the guys in Stereo Total, and they said your club is really good, and so that's normal. But I think that leads to something we were all talking about before, it's like the networking between musicians.
Yeah.
That's the goal.